Hello and welcome to another edition of Football Express. I'm Stephen Looney. Joining me in the studio today are Tim McCann and Mark McIntosh. You're both very welcome as ever. A quick recap on recent results. It's a bit hurdy-gurdy in the local scene. Take you back to last weekend. Sports Direct Premiership results Friday, February 7th. Ballymena United 2, Linfield 2. Saturday, February 8th. Carrick Rangers 0, Coleraine 1. Glentoran 1, Dungannon Swifts 0. Larne 0, Crusaders 1. Sunday, February 9th. Cliftonville 2, Portadown 2. Tuesday, February 11th. Linfield 1, Larne 0. We're in the studio on Wednesday. There's a match tonight between Cliftonville and Carrick Rangers. We don't know the result as yet. Looking ahead to this weekend. Friday, February 14th, St Valentine's. Coleraine versus Glentoran at the Showgrounds. Saturday, February 15th. Crusaders versus Ballymena United. Dungannon Swifts versus Carrick Rangers. Glenavon versus Cliftonville. Linfield versus Loughgall, and we finish in the evening with Portadown against Larne. Okay, Tim, let's start with a showdown between Linfield and Larne Tuesday night at Windsor Park. It was a tale of two Tartan players in my book, Andy Ryan and Kieran Offord. One was sent off, the other scored a winning goal, his first for the Blues. Straight in, Tim, no messing about. Was it a straight red card for Andy Ryan, a tackle on Kyle McLean?
Not in my opinion, no. I thought it was clumsy. More than anything, I think Andy Ryan, I mean, if he goes in with 2 feet, then I understand that, but you know, he's actually sliding in with his knees. To me, he looks like he's kind of pulling out, or he's, as I said, the only word I can use is clumsy, but within, I'd say, a second of that tackle, the red card is straight out. So listen, and I've seen it from a couple of different angles. I even look at other Linfield players' faces, and they're even shocked when they see the red card coming out, if you stop it. And as I said, in no instance did I think it was a red card. But listen, what would I know? I'm not a referee, you know, and again, I understand live, and you know, I just think if you had maybe taken a second to think about it, maybe consulted with maybe one of the linesmen or whatever it is, what are you thinking here, guys? Whatever, it was literally just straight out.
Thanks, Tim. Your opinion's valid. You play these games at the highest level, plenty of experience. And we'll go into the game and its implications.
But even on the context of the game, you know, it's such a huge game. You know, it's Larne's way to try and get claw back points, and they're obviously trying to retain their league title. Linfield are trying to win the league title. So it's a huge game. You know, it's the biggest game, you know, of the week. And, you know, to make that call so early in the game, it's a huge call to make. Considering the importance of it.
Absolutely, Tim, yes. Mark, your views on the red card, as I say, we'll open it out in a second, but it was pivotal, so...
Yeah, listen, I agree with Tim. It was certainly clumsy at best. David Jeffrey said on the commentary that he could see where the referee was coming from, and he didn't think it was a red card, but he could see where the ref was coming from. I actually agree with that. I think Andy Ryan, because of how clumsy it was, gives the referee a decision to make, and once you do that, then you're in the lap of the gods, let's be totally honest. Again, I agree with Tim, he didn't give himself any time. You know, he was so sure it was a red card, and like within a second, he pulled it out. And you could see the reaction of players, like I think they were shocked. But if you, look, it's different. See, when you look at these tackles slowed down, you can make it into anything you want, I think. And it did look reckless, probably, with the way he goes in with 2 knees. And, you know, he will probably say that he was pulling out of that tackle. That's why it looked like that. It's a difficult one, but for me, if we're given red cards for that, I think we're going to have loads and loads of red cards. You know, it looked worse than it was, probably.
Just before you come in again, Tim, I know you're waiting there. I'm going to declare my hand. I thought referee Shane Andrews was slow in showing a red card. For me, it was a red card all day, every day, honestly. And I'll give for debating purposes. I'll give you my reasons why. I saw Andy Ryan trying to control the ball. He didn't get as good a touch on it as he wanted to. The ball went further ahead of him. I thought I saw him looking up and seeing a player coming along. Whether he knew it was Kyle McLean or not, I don't know. And next thing, the tackle, he went in with 2 knees. I don't know why he went in with 2 knees. And I feel it was reckless. Absolutely. I mean, like, you know, just looking at real time, I thought that's a potential leg breaker. That was my initial call on it was red card. Absolutely. Your thoughts, please.
But on the other side, Kyle McLean's getting into the tackle too.
Yeah.
He's getting in to win the ball, so is he protecting himself? He hasn't flew in with 2 feet. So if he flies in with 2 feet and the two of them clash and they hit both feet, is it a red card, is it a yellow card, or what is it?
You're absolutely fair, Tim.
Do you know what I mean?
And I want to make it clear that I'm not saying that Andy Ryan intentionally went in to do any damage. Maybe he did see it was
There certainly wasn't
there
certainly wasn't between 3 and 5 seconds going.
From where Shane was,
he pulled it out straight away.
he did.
I know he did. I was making a point there.
From where Shane was as well, I can understand because it probably does look reckless. But it's a difficult one. Only Andy Ryan knows what he was doing.
Why would any player at that level, or any level at all, go in with a challenge like that? He's in control of the ball,
But
and his next challenge is
if
with
he's
2
pulling,
knees
if he's
forward.
pulling out of that, not
But
to cause havoc.
But
then,
you hear commentators all the time, whether it's a Premier League, that's a typical centre forwards challenge. It's a stupid challenge. He's not a tackler. He doesn't know how to frigging tackle. Do you know what I mean? He doesn't. That's, you know, he's not in midfield. He's not in the heat of the battle. Sometimes centre forwards make clumsy tackles, and to me, that was a clumsy centre forwards tackle. Does it deserve a yellow card? By all means, it deserved a yellow card. I genuinely don't believe that he was in danger of seriously hurting Kyle McLean in any shape or form, or was it intentional? That's my point.
I'm not saying it was intentional at all. Again, you know, explain to me what he was doing.
Again, I think we don't know it. I just think it was
clumsy. Why couldn't he stand up? He was on his feet. Why couldn't he stand up and the two of them go in on their feet together? Why did he go to ground?
I think if he thinks he goes in with 2 feet and he catches him, then he thinks he's getting sent off. I genuinely do.
I think he goes to overstretch because of the touch, and then he realises if he does overstretch, then he's going to get sent off.
Yeah, because
and
his
he
leg
tries
would
to
have
pull
been
out,
straight.
and that creates his knees.
I'm not sure. If you look
Maybe
at it,
not.
I think he looked up and saw a player coming in, and as you say, Tim, he may have been trying to protect himself, because Kyle McLean is a robust player, there's no doubt about that. But as I say, the options for him coming in there, he could have stayed tall, he could have stayed in his feet, and the two of them could have clashed like
Look, the
that.
other thing is,
or he could have gone to ground and played a block or a sweep tackle.
I think we'd all agree there's been some shocking decisions this season. Maybe most seasons, but this season in particular, it seems there's some real shockers. So the players are probably expecting some of those, but their reaction last night, you know, it wasn't like the Linfield players were screaming for a red card that I saw. It looked like they were
I think it happens that fast. I don't think he's really timed to kind of think about what's going on. I think he's going, I'm going to have to throw myself in here. I don't want to pull out of the tackle. I'll throw myself into the tackle some way to try and make contact with the ball. He's went with his knees for whatever reason. I mean, I think if you go with your feet, it's more dangerous than going with your knees. But again, as I say, only Andy Ryan will know. And again, the referee's 5 yards away from him, so he's a better angle at it from us. He can see the velocity and the pace that he's getting in at. It's different when you're watching it on TV, but for me it was a yellow.
Okay, so we're maybe not in agreement about the red card, and fair enough, you know, it's all about opinions. Now, did Kieran Offord foul Ryan Nolan for the winning goal? Kieran Offord, who we know moved to Linfield, he was at Crusaders on loan, St Mirren player, they called him back and sold him to Linfield. Good player.
Very good player. Brilliant. He makes the runs in behind. He's strong. He's stocky. Listen, I've watched it back several times. For me, initially, it was a foul on the defender, because I think he's just bumbled him out of the way. And he hasn't done it from a shoulder charge. He's done it from his back. So he's pushed him in his back with his shoulder, or leant into him. And for me, that's a foul. 30 seconds later, there's not even close to being a similar challenge in midfield, and it's given us a free kick. So we're just trying to give up. And again, I'm going on, you know, the importance of the game and decisions. Listen, Jordan McIntosh should clear the ball. He had so many chances to clear that ball. He puts Aaron Donnelly in a terrible position. He checks back in and he fizzes the ball at Aaron Donnelly, who doesn't have time to react to his feet, and it slides back into Kieran Offord, who then makes the lunge into the defender. Brilliant centre forward play, and Cooley slots it into that. It's a great goal from Linfield's point of view. But again, I do think there was an infringement. But sometimes they're given, sometimes they're not.
Thanks, Tim. Mark?
Yeah, and I think, look, we've seen it a million times. What's a foul in the centre circle isn't the same in the penalty area, and that probably winds a lot of people up. At first glance, when it was happening live, I thought it was a foul. And when I saw the replays, I was convinced it was a foul. Now, yes, admittedly, Ryan Nolan has to be stronger. I don't think there's any doubt about that. Kieran Offord was cute. It was very similar to a goal he scored at the start of the season as well. I thought he was very cute with it. But to me, it's a foul. Like, there's no doubt about that.
Can the linesman help him there?
But we don't know if they do or not, because, you know, back in the day they used to go over to the linesman to speak, but they don't have to do that anymore. So you don't know what the communication is.
I full declaration. In real time, and prefacing it, you're right, there was a bit of panic at the Larne penalty box of their own doing. I didn't see a foul first time round, I must say. When I saw the replay, yeah, I can see why Larne would be calling for a foul, and that shows my frailties of calling it real time. You know, it'll be hands up.
But again, you know, it's not the referee's fault, it's Larne's fault, and it's Jordan McIntosh's fault that they were put in that situation. He has the ball at the edge of his own 18-yard box, and all he has to do is clear his lines. He then checks back in, loses it, wins it back, and then fizzes it back in across his own 18-yard box, which for me is madness. So Larne have put themselves in that position. So,
all right, well, on that, Tim, then, let's just, and we're going to start widening it out a wee bit. So, Larne's defeat to Linfield, are they right to feel aggrieved, or were they architects of their own downfall in the game?
I think that they were right to feel aggrieved from the sending off changed the game, because even you could hear David Jeffrey and Thomas Keane saying, the game has kind of died. Larne were just sitting in, and Linfield had all of his action, just waiting until they got the goal. Once Linfield got the goal, I genuinely couldn't see Larne scoring. They couldn't get up the pitch. Linfield are too smart. They managed the game very, very well. They had the extra player. They used the pitch. They made it big, and it was tough for Larne players. I was actually surprised maybe Larne didn't make subs a wee bit earlier, because there was boys that were dead on their feet. See the running that Dylan Sloan did? It was incredible. He just seemed to be constantly chasing players, and he was the one that looked pivotal to try and get on the ball. At times when he did pick the ball up, there was nothing ahead of him, so he had no chance. But it was listen, you credit Larne players for giving their all and trying to make a fight of it. But for me, Linfield were probably in cruise control for 70% of the game. Once the sending off happened, but certainly for the goal, that they were creators of their own downfall.
Thanks, Tim. Mark, I've gone into the game. I mean, we're all local football fans. We choose to watch Linfield versus Larne over Man City against Real Madrid. I was really looking forward to the game, and I wondered about it because David Healy would have only needed a point, but he went tour with his team selection. 4 offensive players up top, brave again, and I just didn't think Larne did enough.
They didn't, and even before the sending off, I don't think they did enough. And look, you have to say that it was a major point in the game. Anytime a red card happens but I still couldn't have seen Larne creating much. Now, to be fair, Linfield didn't create a great deal for as much as they were in control of the game. And again, you rightly said that it was game management, and the Blues were brilliant at that. But Larne just didn't do enough, and there were too many passes that were so wayward, and it's not something that you're used to with Larne. Yeah. A big thing, obviously, Cian Bolger wasn't at the back for them. There's a school of opinion maybe that Larne are a better defensive unit without Cian Bolger, whilst he's maybe their best defender. It's a really difficult one to explain that.
He's a leader.
He is a leader, and I think that's maybe what they were lacking a bit last night. And once Ryan goes off, Tiernan O'Connor had already gone off injured, so they were a wee bit toothless up top. And that would be a concern going forward now, because, I would say they're in a major battle with Glentoran to finish second. That has to be the main target, and, strikers are falling.
Thanks, Mark. And on that, let's widen it out to the state of play as I have it here. It is that Linfield are 20 points ahead of Glentoran in second place, having played 3 games more. Larne are in fifth, 25 points behind the Blues with 5 games in hand. With respect, I'm not really including Crusaders Dungannon because the games they played more, etc. It's too much to catch up. Mark, put it to you first. Who is best positioned to chase Linfield, Glentoran or Larne? And is the league over? I can ask you that. I maybe can't ask him that, but I can ask you that. Yeah,
listen, Linfield, David Healy and everyone else at Linfield will say the right things, and they'll have to say that it's one game at a time and it's not over. Nonsense, it is. Linfield will win the league, there's no doubt about that. In terms of finishing second, Glentoran are the club with all the momentum. 13, 14 games, unbeaten. They look like a team. That's the biggest compliment I can pay Glentoran this season, because they've had quality players the last several years, big money signings, but they never looked like a team. Now they do. Everyone's singing off the same hymn sheet. There's a good feeling around the place, and the players are doing the job on the pitch. And I don't see that changing. They might hit a bump in the road, but having watched Larne all season, I wouldn't be convinced Larne will put a run together and win loads of games in a row. I think they'll continue to slip up. We've seen it even in recent weeks. So if I was a Glentoran fan, I would be very pleased at the moment, and I can't see anyone other than them finishing second.
So it's Linfield 1, Glentoran 2 for
Yeah.
you at this stage. Thank you, Mark. Indeed. Tim, I know, similar to Mark saying that Linfield will say all the right things, I know that the Glentoran camp will say all the right things, and rightly so. Listen, full credit. My own view is that Declan's done brilliantly. Cup's brilliant. You know, the recruitment's been excellent. I just think that it took that bit of time to bed in that it's a bridge too far to look at the league this stage. I think you'd be 10 or 11 points behind if you win your games in hand. But what do you make of it? Is you can't say, is the league over? Who do you think is going to, well, how do you think it's going to pan out?
Listen, if you're chasing any team that's 20 points ahead of you, regardless, and I think anybody will tell you, you'd rather have the points on the board than have the games in hand, regardless of who you're playing. So, listen, all we do is literally concentrate on us trying to get as high up the table as possible. And if that's good enough to catch Linfield, then it's good enough. But Mark touched on momentum's a big thing. We want to win games for ourselves. Again, as I said, we don't want to lose games. We want to try and win as many games as possible and try and build momentum. You know, we're in the final of the League Cup. We're in the quarter final of the Irish Cup. We want to continue to build that momentum. You want to continue to try and manage. I think with something like 10 or 11 games in the next 40, 39 days, which is going to be really tough, and it's trying to manage that. We're not complaining by any shape or form. So it's about managing the squad as well. So we're just trying to get as many points on the board as possible, and minimal, the minimum thing is to try and chase that second place. If you could get automatic second and still be in with a chance of, once you go into the split, because you never know. You just never know. You genuinely don't. There's 15 points up for grabs in the split. Anything can happen. If you're able to get that points tally down to a certain amount, you just don't know. But realistically now, we're just trying to win as many games as possible, trying to keep the momentum going, trying to get as much points on the board as we can. I know it's boring, but take each game as it comes and just try and pick up 3 points. And that starts on Friday night, a very difficult game, away to Coleraine, who, had a good win last weekend. So it's going to be tough. Thanks,
Tim. Mark, Tim mentions the game on Friday night, Coleraine against Glentoran. The other games I said earlier on, Cruise against Ballymena, the Swifts against Carrick, Glenavon against Cliftonville, Linfield versus Loughgall, Portadown versus Larne, 5:30 at Shamrock Park. I will put it to you, Mr. McIntosh. I expect Linfield to beat Loughgall. Coleraine are an interesting prospect for the Glens on Friday night, and the Ports won't make it easy for Larne at Shamrock on Saturday.
Yeah, Portadown, I think they've had a brilliant season. Again, shrewd signings. We know Niall can do that. They'll score goals. I think Portadown will get something from that game. And like I said, Larne just don't, like I mentioned earlier, the strikers could be an issue for Larne. Where do they get goals? I do fancy Portadown. The Glentoran game at Coleraine, though, I think is going to be a smasher. You never quite know what Coleraine are going to turn up at the moment. And maybe we should have expected that. Going full time, it takes time. We've seen that with other clubs. But I still think with the squad they have, they should be doing better. I think in any given day, they can turn up and they can turn it on. But just from seeing Glentoran in recent times, I think the Glens will win it. They're full of confidence. They'll bring a big crowd. And, Glentoran crowds can be difficult. We all know they love a car park protest when things aren't going well. But see, when things are going well, they come out in their numbers and they're loud, they're proud. I think even that sort of thing, you can see Decky's trying to get everybody together. We saw that from earlier in the season. Even when the results weren't going well, Decky was bringing everybody along. And I think that's all played a part in it. And just the confidence streaming through them, I can't see anything other than the Glentoran victory.
Thanks, Mark. Tim, sort of coming at things from maybe a different angle. Larne, we maybe alluded to earlier on, they're looking a bit leggy for me, inevitably after all the games they've had, going back to July. One thing I'll say, I've watched Portadown recently, and I'm not sure. I've been a wee bit impressed with Niall Curry's tactical nous, and it's not something that he gets a lot of credit for, I have to say. So that will be a tough proposition. Linfield Loughgall, I just think it's home advantage. I think it's a Linfield win. Now, Coleraine against Glentoran, again, you say you've got momentum, Tim.
Yeah.
It's up at the showgrounds. I wonder, does that make any difference? Does it make any difference to you?
No, I think we've played pretty well. We've quite a lot of wins away from home this season. It's another game. It's another chance for the players to go and show the manager what they can do. Whoever has the jersey will try and go out and keep it. As I said, there's cup competitions coming up. There's fighting for places, and once everybody's fit, there's potentially going to be boys that won't even make the bench because the squad's that good. So no, I mean, we'll go there, and it's a difficult place to go. Coleraine will have a big crowd too, some fantastic players, really good. I think it'll be a really entertaining game, and hopefully we can come out the end of it, the right side of it. But you know, just with the players at the minute, they have this never say die attitude, whether it's coming from behind, whether it's, you know, scoring late goals, you know, whatever it may be, they go right to the end. And you know, we just look at even Loughgall 2 weeks ago, you know, we were 1-0 down, come back and win 2-1. You know, the Danny Amos goal, you know, the Linfield game where we're, you know, in extra time. You know, I think our fitness is up there with the best of them. And I think the boys have worked their socks off. You know, you're talking 13, 14K in games that they're putting a shift in. And I think you can see it. I think the fans can see it. And I think that's what the fans, all they ever wanted was to see a team that goes out and leaves everything on the field. And I think that's all we can do, is just go out and leave everything on the field. And I think the rest will take care of itself.
Thanks, Tim. Mark, I want to ask about Coleraine, actually. Just your take on it, an overview. I don't think I've spoken to you about it really on the show. You know, again, I'll put it to you for just to prompt debate. Would it be fair to say that Coleraine currently are where maybe Glentoran were 5-6 years ago, in terms of that they're starting a new project? For example, like I was talking to Stephen Baxter, Carrick's manager, after playing, and he opined that we'll see the best of this Coleraine project in 3 years' time.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree. It does take time. Like I said, we've seen every team who went full time. It does take that transitional period. Larne were slightly different because they started at such a low base. I think that's the difference there. Coleraine, though, I think, look, some of their signings haven't hit the ground running. I don't think there's any doubt about that. I think their recent signing, though, Declan McManus, could turn out to be an absolute belter. He scored a lot of goals, obviously, for TNS. I think he's going to be a very, very good player. But it's going to take time. Now, whether does Dean Shields get that time? You know, there's a lot of unrest with fans. I think things like that happen all the time now. In the last couple of years, fans are so impatient. But I would imagine Coleraine will certainly stick with Dean Shields no matter what happens this season. But if you look at their squad, I still think they should be better than they are. Now, maybe they're trying to do too many things too soon, I don't know. But I still think for the quality they have within their squad, they should be doing better than they are.
There is an adjustment period when you're moving. I was at Larne when they moved to full time, and it didn't happen overnight at Larne. Do you know what I mean? They only went, I think it was the second year or third year that they went full time, and they didn't win the league for another 2 or 3 years after that. So there is a bedding in process, and it does take players time to adjust because you're training every day as to maybe training twice a week. Players that they've brought in, Levi Ives is used to full-time training, the likes of McManus is used to full-time training, so they have brought players in that are used to full-time training, and I'm sure players are loving it. All their players are loving coming in, training every day, but it does take time for your body maybe to adjust to it, and so maybe that's why they're having a little, you know, up and down kind of season at the minute. But I feel next year, once they get through pre-season and get a full pre-season under their belt of training every day, I think it'll help them.
Yeah, I think I haven't watched Coleraine a bit recently. I think you're right. I think there's a settling in time. And I think another conundrum is probably up front. Matthew Shevlin is their top man, and he's got 16 goals. He's right up the top there. Jimmy McGonigal and Declan McManus, who, you know, I want to see how they interact and play off each other, because I think Chevy needs a bit of help up there. Just on Declan McManus, I was asking Dean Shields last game I was at, is his nickname Elvis? And he says, why? I says, well, that's Elvis Costello's real name, Declan McManus.
Oh, right, there you go.
Now, moving on swiftly to other games. Glenavon against Cliftonville, Tim. You know Solitude very well. You won a league title there. I think it's a very attractive proposition. Paddy McLaughlin seems to be doing what Paddy McLaughlin does at Mourneview. How do you view this game going into it?
Really tough one for Cliftonville. I think it's a smashing game. You know, I think Glenavon are playing with no fear now. I think they're playing some really attracting style of football. I think he's getting the best out of the players. I think they're maybe coming in an extra night as well. I think he's changed maybe the training schedule as well. But even watching the highlights of the last game in the Irish Cup, I think Glenavon, you know, they took it to, I think it was extra time. But they're very, very good going forward. Very difficult team to play against. And listen, as I said, they've nothing to lose. I think it's a free hit for them. I watched the Cliftonville Portadown game, and I thought the first half Cliftonville were very good. I thought Portadown kind of struggled a wee bit. But then you touched on Nell Curry changing You know, he doesn't get tactical awareness or doesn't get praise for his tactical, but he changed it to a 3-5-2, and as soon as he done that, the last 25 minutes, 20 minutes, I don't think Cliftonville could get out of their half. It was all Portadown. They were constantly on the ball, they were pushing, and in fact at the end they were pushing for the winner. I think it's a difficult game for Cliftonville, I really do, because they're trying to get a bit of momentum. They seem to be scoring the first goal, but just can't kill games off. Whether there's some injured bodies that they're having to play. I know Joe wasn't playing last week. You know, look at Rory Hale, he's lively for the first 60 and then kind of maybe sort of peters out. Maybe he's carrying a bit of an injury. I just don't know, but Cliftonville will still play attractive football, but listen, I think it's going to be a difficult game. I fancy a draw.
Thanks, Tim. Of course, we know that they met recently in the Irish Cup, took extra time. Cliftonville came out on top. Rory Hale scored a cracker, and Johnny Addis as well. Mark, your views on Glenavon, Cliftonville and Paddy McLaughlin at Mourneview Park?
I don't think you can praise Paddy enough for the job he's done since he was in there. As Tim said, you know, he made it 3 nights a week training. It's one of the first things he did at Cliftonville as well, and we know how that went. And I think you can see the difference. You know, they've changed on the pitch. I'll be interested to see next season. You know, we know Stephen McDonald changed the width of the pitch. I think Paddy will rectify that next season. I don't think it overly suits them, but they're getting results. They're full of confidence. I like the fact that he's also convinced people to extend their contracts. Isaac Bird, in my opinion, could be one of the best young players in the league. He's recently signed a new deal, but he's also getting a tune out of, you know, the likes of David McDade, Michael O'Connor. They're scoring goals as well. I think there's a lot of good things happening at Glenavon, and by all accounts, the cup game was an absolute smasher at Solitude the other week. And we all know what Cliftonville are like. You know, they've got people who can score goals. If Joe's fit, he can score out of nowhere. You know, Ryan Curran has taken a bit of time to get back into the swing of things because he's missed basically 2 years. And I still think the loss of Ronan Doherty was huge for Cliftonville. You know, he's gone to Coleraine in January there. I think he's a huge, huge miss, because while Rory Hale rightly gets a lot of the plaudits for what he does in midfield, I don't think Rory can do a lot of the stuff he does without someone like Ronan Doherty, and he's a huge miss. But Glenavon will go there believing they can win the game. And I think the game a couple of weeks ago, although they lost in extra time, I think it'll give them confidence they can go there to win the game.
Davy McDade, you know, he looks trim, he looks slim, he looks fit. You know, he's hounding down defenders. You know, he just looks a player that's playing with confidence, and that's what it is. You know, Paddy looks like he stilled a load of confidence into these players. You mentioned Michael O'Connor, Peter Campbell. Like, they've got really good players. And on their day, you know, they can beat anyone.
Peter Campbell's a good shout because he's now showing consistency. That's the one thing you could level at him. You know, even under Gary Hamilton, he probably didn't show the consistency that you'd want. Maybe players like that never do, but I think he's starting to show that now, and we're all seeing why clubs like Glentoran were after him for so long.
What about Cliftonville now? The talk is that Cliftonville have offered Jim Magilton the new 3-year deal, or that's anticipated. Where are they? Where are Cliftonville, Mark, do you think? Because Jim arrived there last season. We know what a great season they had. They won the Irish Cup. Everything was great then. There was an exodus, particularly of strikers. And he's had to juggle that. Moving in the right direction, do you think?
Yeah, and look, I think this season was always going to be difficult for the reasons you just said. To lose 3 strikers and 40 goals.
And Oran Casey as well, we have to say as well.
Yeah, exactly. You know, and obviously Oran's back now. And I think he again was a big miss. But it will take time again. You can see that they're building something. Jim's had to sign a lot of players that, you know, fans have probably never heard of. And when you do that, a lot of them are gambles. Now, every transfer is a gamble, I guess, but, you know, they are proper gambles. I think you've seen enough signs that things are okay there. They will grow. But I think fans have to be patient. And I think Jim and Skin certainly have enough credit in the bank after last season.
Thanks, Mark. I know you can't. Well, what I'm going to ask you is, I think Crusaders are playing Ballymena on Saturday. I think Crusaders and Cliftonville are in a similar boat in that I think they both know they can't just go out and buy all the best players. So they have to do a bit of this and a bit of that, you know, like young players.
They obviously don't have the budget that other teams have. And for Cliftonville to have competed, and we've said it in numerous shows, I think it's a testament to Jim and how they finished the season last season. No team could do as well taking those 3 players out, those strikers out. No team. I don't care who you are. They're very, very difficult to replace. So, as you say, it's about doing wheeling and dealing and trying to bring players in and building it. So, yes, they'll start to build again. Use this as maybe as it's not to say they won't have a good end of the season, but try and build again for next season and try and get a squad together, because, as I said, they can't pay the wages that other clubs can pay. So, they're always going to be a bit behind, but they've never shown that in their footballing style or how they play.
And they could go ahead and retain the Irish Cup this
Absolutely.
year. They've got a tie against Crusaders to look forward to. Okay, thanks. Nearly the end of the show. A couple of games to look at, Tim. Cruise, Ballymena, I've mentioned, and Dungannon Swifts against Carrick Rangers. For me, Carrick can't buy a goal at the minute, and I fear that they're marooned now. You know, I think Loughgall are doomed, and I think Carrick will occupy the playoffs unless something miraculous happens. So, looking at the games, Tim, Cruise against Ballymena United, great win for Crusaders against Larne last week, has to be said. And Swifts against Carrick Rangers, how do you think they're going to pan out?
Ballymena had a great, well, probably they thought they should have won. I thought it was a great performance against the Blues. I'm sure Jim would have been proud of the players and disgusted to lose a late goal. I think they'll go to CV with confidence, but I just think CV's a difficult place to go, and I think Daggy has the boys playing well at the minute. You say it was a great win against Larne, so I fancy Crusaders just to nick that one. And the other game, Dungannon at home, they're a difficult team to play at home. You know, Carrick have been struggling a little bit, so I fancy Dungannon to get a home win. Thanks,
Tim. In fairness, Mark, Carrick have been very, very gritty. Like, there's no lack of battle in them at all. Swifts have been silky this year. So Swifts against Carrick and the Cruise against the Sky Blues.
Yeah, look, I love what I've seen from Dungannon this season. I like their fullbacks. I think McGovern's done well. I think they score goals. I think they'll only get better. I can't see anything other than a Dungannon victory there. What I will say about Carrick, though, as you were saying, the lack of goals, I think Adam Foley's a really shrewd signing from Stephen Baxter. Throughout his career, he scored goals, no matter where he's been, up here and down south. Is it going to be enough for them to climb the table? I don't think so. I think they're kind of stuck in that position, as you say. In terms of Ballymena, are one of those sides that I really don't know what they are. I think Patrick McElhenney was a signing I didn't quite understand at the time because his injury record is so poor in the past couple of years. Now, when you get him fit on the pitch, he's a brilliant player. He can dictate everything. He can play in several positions. And I think he was very good against the Blues. And to be fair to him, you know, since he got into the team after being able to play, he's played 5 or 6 games. And I think Derry fans are probably scratching their heads going, why couldn't that happen for us the last couple of years? Because a fit Patrick McElhenney last season at Derry City, I think they go and win the League of Ireland. So I think if he can stay fit, I think we'll see a good end of the season from Ballymena. But it's always going to be tough going to Seaview. But as we discussed with the Cruise, again, it's a transition year, you know, and losing Kieran Alford is a massive, massive blow, because even when you're not playing well, you know, if you can get the ball up to him, he can create something out of nothing. But I would fancy that one might be a draw.
Okay, Mark, thanks. Tim, that's about it. Thanks for joining me as ever. That's it. That's your whistle-stop tour of the Irish League. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you the next time on Football Express.